first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to IQ Designer. And I like to use a mouse. And I just have a very inexpensive mouse. I have an old Dell mouse from an old Dell computer. This mouse is probably 15 years old. But you don't want a real fancy mouse. When you're doing a lot of IQ Designer stuff, I just find it, for me, it's easier to use a mouse with IQ. So I'm just going to come down to my Solaris and click on IQ Designer. And then I'm going to go up here and I am going to click on this little leaf. And I'm going to just do an image scan. And then we're going to build our quilting design on top of this. So done the image scan, then I'm going to click scan and click on OK. And now this is going to scan in what we have in the hoop. And it just takes a moment. All right. And now it's recognizing it, and there's our quiltable area for this hooping. Now, if I don't have a full piece of fabric inside of this image, I'm not going to quilt it. So I'm going to darken up the image. So up here at the top of the screen, lighten and darken. For right now, I just want to darken it to get a better look at it. Okay. Can go up 2 more notches, actually. 1, 2. There's the brightest. So in this hooping, I can actually quilt 2 pieces of fabric. This piece right here and this big square. That's what we're going to quilt first. So if I start drawing on this right now, you won't see any of the stitches because it's been made as bright as it can be. So you want to dim it down to about right there, to about the second notch from the left. And we might even go lower once we get going here. Could even do it with that one. And what I'm going to first do, though, I'm going to describe and talk to you about some of the settings actually in IQ Designing, what some of these things mean. So this up here, this area right here is called the line properties area of the screen. And if I click on this, it looks like a pencil. That is how you select it for a pencil. So I'm going to click on looks like the page, and that'll take you into the line properties selections. So this pencil right here, when you draw on it, it is just like freehand drawing with a pencil on a piece of paper. And that's an open-ended drawing. And what that means is, I'm just going to go back and do that. So I'm going to lighten this up a whole lot right now, just so we have a blank screen here. And what that means is, wherever I move my pointer, whether I'm using my finger or the other stylus, it's just going to draw a line. Now, when I let go of my left mouse button, only the left mouse button will work on a mouse when you have a mouse attached to it. I could do the same thing with my finger. I could also use my stylus right here. Check this out. Come on. There we go. So there's three different methods right there. But everything I just drew right now, if you look up here, if I went to next, it's going to do a satin stitch on every bit of that because I had the zigzag stitch selected. So before I ever start drawing, you want to select what you can select your stitch right now. You can change it at a later date. So I could have selected any of these other stitches. For instance, what if I wanted to use this buttonhole, the blanket stitch? So I'm just going to click on OK. And when I draw this another line, I'm just going to do a really straight line here. And we'll let go of it. Now, it doesn't look like that stitch I just selected. You can see it right up here. Let's just go to the next menu. And now you can actually see that these, I'm going to increase the magnification up to 200%, but you can see that those are actually zigzag stitches. When I put the camera closer, you can actually see that those are zigzag stitches. And when I scroll over, where I drew the straight line and I selected that blanket stitch, it actually shows on the screen the blanket stitch. It will actually stitch out like that. So there's a lot of customization that you can do in IQ Designer for quilting. So now I'm just going to return because I don't want to actually stitch that out. I'm just going to clear my screen. To clear everything off, just click on the All Clear button, click on OK, and it just blanks everything out. Now what it also did then, it also cleared my background image. However, if we go back up here to the leaf and we do an image scan, let me think here a second. I did not save it. If I had saved it to the machine, I could just pull it right back up. So I'm just going to scan it again. So there's 4 different types of lines that you can draw. You can do the freehand like I was just doing. The other freehand that we're going to do next will actually close on itself. So it's a closed shape. And we'll do that once this finishes its scanning back in. There we go. So that's back. I'm just going to blank that out again. So what we were using there was the first pencil. So this one, if you look at the second pencil in, it has a little dotted line from where that looks like the letter C is. That means a closed shape. Let's click on that. And this time I'm going to click on the single stitching line and click on OK. And then when I draw, check this out. You see how it's creating that red line? So if I stop right there, it just automatically drew a line from where I stopped to where I began. It instantly creates a closed shape. A very useful feature, and you'll find out in just a bit how useful that is. So I'm just going to hit my back arrow this time. And we're going to go back into our line properties. And now, as you saw, those first 2 pencil lines, it's totally dependent on where you're exactly drawing at on that screen. If you want super straight lines, like you put a ruler down and drew a pencil beside a ruler, that's what these two, the number 3 and the number 4 properties are. So this one, if I click on it and hold down my mouse, check this out. I can rotate that line in any direction, drag it, shrink it. When I let go, it stays where it's at. Okay, so that's your open point to point. What those are point to point lines. The next one over, you can do this. So if I go here, so there's my starting point. It automatically put a red box on the screen. Okay, that's also where we will automatically end at once we get to that point. Okay, so next I'm going to click, and then if I click over here, if I click just outside of the box, it's going to draw a line from the center of the box to my pointer. If I go a little bit further, it'll do it again and again, or a long ways over. Then I can come straight down, or I can go up at an angle. It's always going to connect my starting and end point with where I'm drawing at. So, and then say I was done there, I just go click anywhere inside that box and it will finish that shape I just drew. I use these two probably 90% of the time when I'm quilting in the hoop, at least when I'm doing geometric shapes with a lot of straight lines. So for this first one, I'm going to use this last one that we used. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing some. I'm going to draw around the shapes that I want to quilt in, but I don't want it to stitch any of the lines I'm about to draw. So this zigzag line with the line through it, I'm going to click on that. And then all it will do, it will draw guidelines, nothing else. I'm going to use my undo button and get rid of those shapes I just did. There's that one. Now we'll get rid of the other one. Oops. There we go. And it grayed out, so that's as far as we can go with it. I'm going to darken my screen so I can get my image back up. There we go. That was just the second click from the left. Now I'm going to enlarge because it's easier to see, and this is how you get really accurate with it. I'm going to go up to 200%. And then I'm going to use the hand and drag down. So that big purple square of fabric is what I'm going to draw on first. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 400% and drag it over here. So I get up to a corner. And now I'm going to draw this line that will not stitch out right in the seam lines on this piece of fabric. So I'm going to click on my my icon here, and that automatically gets rid of the hand. So now with that clicked on, I can start drawing. So check it out. When I do this, I'm going to put that right in that corner, and I clicked right in that corner. Now I'm going to bring it in, the camera in, so you can see better. But you can see it put that dot with the square around the dot. That little dot is where it will begin drawing at. And I'm actually going to make it just a hair lighter. Perfect. It'll show up much better. So when you're actually doing this, you'll find the lightest image you can see will work better for you because you'll be able to see what you're drawing. So now I'm just going to follow the seam line. I can do a little click, or I can do a longer click. Okay, now I need to move my image. So instead of using the hand up here to move it, you can also use these slider bars. So I'm going to go to the bottom and use a slider bar and just move my image over some more. I can see my red line right there. That's where I'm stitching at. So I'm going to just click on the seam line again. I'm going to slide it over some more. Okay. And there, and there, and there. Now I'm going to come down this seam. And what we're going to do here, this is one method to do it. We're just going to draw a big box all the way around that piece of fabric. And there, and there, and there. Once you get, if you have never done this before, once you start doing it, you'll spend the whole day or whole night here just doing this. It's so much fun. This is one of my all-time favorite things to do is sit in front of this machine and quilt. I actually have customers who want me to do custom quilting using my baby block machine because of this feature right here. So now you can see I'm almost back to where I started. Let me bring the camera over. So that red line looks pretty dead on that seam right there. So now I am actually going to just click inside the box, and it just finished up that shape. I'm going to zoom back out to 100%, and I'm going to get rid of the background image. Now you can see the square that I just drew on my quilt. This square I just drew will not stitch out because I selected no stitch. And you can tell that by looking right here in this window, and it just has the color of the lines, but there's no stitch selected. That's what I wanted. So now I'm going to darken it up a notch. And I'm going to go down here and we're going to talk about the region properties. Okay. So the region properties, it has these two icons here are exactly the same. This is a fill bucket. I'll show you a little later what this fill bucket does. This fill bucket only pertains to changing the color of the stitches you have programmed in. So right now we are going to go right here though and pull up this screen. And I'm going to click on this icon, the third icon from the left. And this is where all the built-in quilting patterns are. And we're going to hit select. And now I have to decide, this is the hard part, deciding which one you're going to put on that piece of fabric. So that fabric actually looks like this right here. A really big, loud print. And it's got a lot of curves in it and looks like some floral stencils. So I don't think a floral quilting design would look good on that. I think a geometric design would look good. So I think, let's scroll down here and see. I love this one. It's hexagons, but I'm an old farm boy. It reminds me of chicken wire from the chicken coops. I really like that one. But I think what would look best on that one, these 6 designs right here are the 6 new ones that are in the Solaris 2 or with kit number 2 for the Solaris. And this is my favorite. I love pebbles and circles, and I think that would look really good on that. So I'm going to select this one. So there's two circular quilting motifs built into the Solaris now. We have the original circles here, and these there's different size circles in this one. I'm just going to select that one and click on OK. And we're going to see what this would look like. We may change our minds, who knows? And I'm going to select a stitch. I'm just going to select black for my thread color. It doesn't matter what thread color you select at this point. You can change it to whatever you want once you get to the stitch out. Let's click on OK. I'm going to activate the fill bucket. And I'm going to click inside the box I just drew. Let's empty that out. Isn't that cool? Now let's see what it will look like on top of the fabric. It may not be as cool then. Okay, so if you go up really high, that kind of gives you a good overview. It wouldn't actually stitch out quite that intensely. I love those circles. I call them pebbles. So let's just brighten the fabric up one more notch. And that would be, to me, that's more of a realistic representation. Focus. I'm talking to the camera, not me. Okay, so really looking at your screen from here, you can see a very faint outline of those. So we'll just dim the fabric one more notch. So now I'm going to hit next. And then I have a whole lot of other options. Now, On the Solaris, you have this option, which I love. You also have this option down here. So what this does the same type of stitch out as the Altair or the Destiny does. It does like a triple stitch, a really heavy, almost like an embroidery stitch. However, with the Solaris, it's called thickness. If you click on this one, that will make it look like long arm quilting. That icon right there. It just does pretty much a single layer. So with the Solaris and Solaris 2, it has this feature here, which gives you that long arm quilting look. Okay, so I'm just going to hit OK. And that actually, it was, the lines were much darker and they lightened up just by doing that. So this screen here is kind of like a what you see is what you get screen on this machine. Now, I like, whenever I'm quilting in the hoop like this on these machines, you can have it quilt a frame around that fill design or just the fill design itself. After much trial and error, I always turn the outline on. And I'm going to tell you why. If you have that outline off, every time it has to move around, when you have the outline on, it uses the outline to travel on. So you only have a starting point and an ending point. There are no thread breaks. There's no jump stitches. If you have that outline off, it may stitch in 7 different places and cut the thread 7 different times in that one box. I don't like it to do that on my quilts. Also, when we get to this next embroidery screen, because we're getting ready to stitch this out, I'm going to show you another really important trick. However, let's just get to the embroidery screen and then we're going to talk about this. So I'm going to hit the set button. Set everything that I want. Actually, there's one more thing I want to do. Do I? Yes, no. I like how that looks. You can actually go up here to 100. I'm just going to show you this real quick. You can adjust the size of the pattern stitch out. For instance, if I move this, I'm just going to black out the background image for this, or just leave it up 1. There we go. So you can see that really well. If I go up to 200%, it will blow up that design by a multiplier of 2. Check it out. Pretty cool. If I can go down to 50%, we'll make it half as small. Okay, okay, check this out. I really like that. I like dense quilting, but we're not good. I'm gonna leave it at 100% for this stitch out, but now that looks like a bunch of beautiful pebbles at someone free motion, doesn't it? Love that. Let's just go up to 100% though. And that would take twice as long to stitch out. And I have a lot of stuff I'm going to show you today. So I'm just going to put it back to 100%. We'll go back to its original built-in default size right there. Here's the thing. If you lower that stitch density down to 50%, it can make a quilt. If you're going to have a wall hanging, fine and dandy. If you're wanting a soft, drapable bed quilt, you do not want to put that down to 50% because it will make your quilt stiff. Okay, so I'm going to click on set, click on OK. There's my embroidery screen, embroidery edit. Now I'm going to click on embroidery and we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to click on this little scissor button down here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that. When you first turn it on, default, your end color trim and your jump stitch cutter trim is by default, it's on. If you quilt in the hoop with the scissor, the jump and the in color trims on, every time it cuts a thread, you're going to have a knot on the back of your quilt and you'll be able to see it and feel it. Okay. If you do not, you can do it either way you want, but this is what I do. I turn the embroidery thread cutter off, in color trim off, jump stitch trim off. The reason why I do that is because I will take my time and I will trim those jump threads on the back, because they won't be small, little tiny jump threads. They'll be big. They'll be big. They'll be big. But by doing that, you eliminate any knots on the back of your quilt.